From the climate of the south to the south of the world, m.ravanshid's note about the contemporary poet m.ravanshid, autumn morning of 2014 in Tehran. m.ravanshid, a name that became famous in Iranian poetry since the beginning of the 70s. In 1990, he was introduced to the field of poetry with the book Bayar and Aftab. He immediately joined the movement of the so-called poets of 70s, of which he was one of its poets. The poets of the 1970s created a new style in the Iranian poetry from the very beginning, which continues to this day. Among them, some names still exist with the full power and are influential and have remained steadfast in their ways. Ravanshid comes from there with special and incredible morals that completely separates him from the southern poets. Honest, sincere, unassuming, kind, and with an open heart that accommodates the whole world. He is a poet whose life depends on his poetry, and his poetry depends on his life. He has a small camera that is always hanging from his shoulder, like a trained bird, and is dependent on it. Ravanshid is like this, a poet who does not even have the slightest feeling of jealousy. It is a pity that such person is very rare in this land. Hard and grueling illnesses have made him look lazy, and in his own words, his occasional misfortunes. It has caused his works and writings to be neglected. Wherever he has worked with all his heart, he has been unloved. Anyway, the main element of his poetry, as far as I understand, it is suffering and the difficulty of living in this world. This element flows like a river in his life, and think that a poet that has such thoughts to write, the results for him is all his works. Even his romances are affected by this constant suffering, the suffering that has brought him to the limits of serious cultural and social commitment. He is the only poet who has addressed the poetry and works of his contemporaries. A conversation with several famous poets of the 70s, who could easily be himself in that book. But Ravanshid was calm and looked at others, with a point of view for the future. Anyway, he has his own experiences in the genre of white poetry. He has sometimes examined the words in poetry, whose founder was of course Furugh Farrokhzad and not anyone else. And most of the type of poems he has written are in the form of white poetry. He has experienced and lived this type of poetry. Like many poets today, he has also tried and written a lot in these fields to understand the mystery of Persian language. He is the child of South, even in Sweden. South means suffering. The South means the experience of war, oil, poverty, and the abandonment of people who have oil rivers and unfinished wells under their feet, without a drop of it dripping on the lantern facing their extinction. The South in poetry can also be seen in Ravanshid's poetry. Of course, not as it is in the poem of Manucher Ateshi. Ravanshid is not necessarily like Manucher Ateshi, a climate poet. Rather, he gradually distances himself from it and takes a broader look at the world around him. Even to the main subject of the poems of all his times, it means love. In his latest book, A Little Bit of Your Hair is Always Careless, which without a doubt was not allowed to be printed due to the occasional use of the word breast. Of course, without his word causing the deviation of Iranian society. It can even be said that this word is used in its most natural and romantic place in the poems of this collection. Nothing can be found from the smell of other than a symbol of lovers' aspects in the love of two people for each other. that the ignorant censor can take it out of the text of the poem. In this book, a kind of theoretical view with a philosophical approach to love can be seen, which oscillates between the perception or worldview of the poets past and today. In this book, m.Ravanshid tries to reach the essence of love from the physicality of the lover, just the opposite of his past romances, which were based on love for the body. In his new collection, he mentions love in the role of God, but he sees love in the form of woman. Although he does not say, "In a lonely place from my word, God is sitting, who is not a man." Or, love walks in us, he sings in us, dances in us. It makes us restless. All favorite songs flows, and the interrogator does not know. Or, loving is an eternal concern to open the seal of the embrace should be together. The story is simple as writing a line on the soil. No, I forget you. No, you will forget. In this collection, which I think is one of his most important works, the beloved is present in two embodied forms, the lady and the beloved. He is like Suleiman Nabi, who on the path of love, one leg of his love still remains in Iran, and the one leg of his love grows in Sweden. What is during his love life in Iran? It all came from his direct experiences and his life. And what was written about love in Sweden, everything is a reflection of his memories and the experience of the freedom of seeing, speaking, composing, and listening. And entering the realm of love is in the realm of humanity. There are traces of romantic expression aspects of the sonnets, of the Suleiman sonnets in this book, which has given new dimensions to the poems. And this is what has given the book a special richness. And again, for this reason, the poet's address is to a beloved woman, which is called the lady, and also to the woman who is addressed as my beloved. No, I will not forget you, my beloved, even in your absence. Or this one, I take off my hat, and to your respect, I wave my hand to God. Lady, now say it out loud with me. Amen. This book is actually a manifesto of romance or love and poetry. And it is from this point of view that he, in this book, and in the sense it gives of love, reaches immortality. Death doesn't care about me when I went out with you. m.Ravanshid, a poet who fights against all anti-human behavior. He is a social activist, literary and cultural researches, social and political obligations, compilation of dictionary of homonymous words, conversation with poets and writers, reconstruction of texts from the Holy Book. I wish this cold land of Sweden could, for the child of the sun and heat of the south of Iran, be kind, so that our poet can calm down and continue writing his books, and let him continue to write poetry and write books. That he will never be separated from poetry and poetic culture and Persian language to the best of his ability. Sincerely, Hiva Masih, autumn morning of 2014 in Tehran.